Hello, welcome back to Spectrum TV. I'm Karen Tui Boys, your host. I'm a champion for lifelong learning, and I am so passionate about helping teachers to be the best you can be, holistically, personally, and professionally. And today, I have my guest, Cathy Sheppard. Hi, Cathy.
Hi there, Karen.
It's so exciting to have you on the show today. And I really was thinking about what we're talking about today, and I was thinking about some of my favourite quotes. And I found a quote from Stephen Covey that says, "Strength lies in differences, not similarities." And I love that quote because that's what we're going to be talking about today, talking about those differences and talking about what, the gold in that, I guess, what makes us all unique, but creates that synergy between us. Because if we were all the same, life would be very interesting and even maybe boring. So that's true. So Cathy is an international speaker, trainer and facilitator. She's had 30 years plus experience in education. You must have started when you were 4. Training and development. She's worked in 5 countries. Cathy is passionate about empowering people, leaders and teams, and about that authentic, compassionate and results focused. So I know that Cathy was also a live guest at our Teachers Matter live conference in January. So it was exciting to have her there. So Cathy, tell us a little bit more about yourself. What do you want the audience to know about you, and what made you get interested in these communication styles?
I think the thing that drives me, thanks very much for that great introduction, by the way, Karen, and I think the thing that has driven me all my life is the quote, which is really fitting for Māori Language Week, Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori, is Hea ha te mea nui o te ao, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. What is the most important thing in the world? It is people, it is people, it is people. And that really has driven me. And if you look at the different curriculums that we have within New Zealand, both the early childhood and the New Zealand curriculum, it comes down to relationships, and relationships are about people. And it is really hard to build relationships with people that you don't understand. And so that helping people to understand other people makes it so much easier to build those relationships. And then we can actually teach. No relationship, no teaching.
I so believe that we have to have the relationship first. And I think many teachers have really, I think they probably believe that, but they've realised how even more important it is during lockdown and when they've been teaching online. And you need to build that relationship first so that students want to be there and they want to be able to connect with you and you want to connect with them. So tell us about, you sort of answered this first question, but the understanding of people, why is it so important for teachers and others?
Yeah, I think back to those years when I was a secondary teacher, because I've taught people from zero, literally from zero, right through to 80, and as Karen said, in 5 different countries. And I think back to my time as a secondary teacher, and I wish that I had had this understanding about different people, because it would have made my life so much easier as a teacher. If we cannot use a cookie cutter approach, if we're trying to teach this person the same as this person, it just doesn't work. So that being able to understand more about ourselves and why we do what we do, and our different students that are in our class and why they do what they do, makes it just so much easier, because then we can adapt our teaching and be so much more effective as teachers. And we see them as people. So much of the time we're hearing, do you see me? Do you know me? And if we don't understand them, we don't see them and we don't know them. And they know that.
Totally true. Yes, absolutely. So I know you talk about the iceberg and people are like icebergs. Tell us a little bit more about that, Cathy.
Yeah. I love this analogy, because if you're thinking about an iceberg, you've got 90% of it under the water. So there's 90% of it that can't be seen. And yet so often as people, we look at somebody and we go, oh, this is what they're like, because this is what we see. And yet when we're seeing them, we're seeing their appearance, we're seeing their body language, we're hearing their tone of voice, we're seeing their facial expressions, we're hearing the words that they're using, and we're making so many judgments from that. And there's so much more to them. And one of the reasons why I love being able to sort of start to read people is that we can take that information and we can think about all of that stuff that is under the iceberg. And there you're looking at things like their culture, their past experiences, their values, their beliefs, their thoughts, their fears, their motivators, their stresses, you know, their health, their financial situation, what's going on in their family. Right. And so just being able to think of them as being an iceberg and going, hey, wow, I can only see 10% of you. And if I can build, you know, use those clues from that 10% and then be able to think about what else is this telling me? What else do I need to know about this person so that I know them, so that I see them? It really, really helps.
So how does understanding these communication styles really help?
Yeah, it really, really does. I've done a lot of work with building teams, and what I've seen is that conflict, 99.9% of conflict comes down to a misunderstanding in communication. And so that if you can understand the different communication styles, so often you'll go, is that what was going on? Is that why that relationship broke down? And just that understanding makes you go, it wasn't about me. It wasn't about them. It was just about this misunderstanding. And that's why understanding those different communication styles can really help. And also it helps you think about, okay, what can I do next to be able to fix this relationship? So it's just so cool.
Yeah. So what are these different communication styles? How do you teach this?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I usually take more than about 3 minutes, but you know, we've got about 3 minutes for this particular answer, so we'll go for it. So
what live TV is all about, Cathy.
Yeah. So DISC is 4 different styles. There are 4 different styles: D for dominance, I for influence, S for steadiness, and C for conscientiousness. And I usually ask 2 questions, and that's to put people on a continuum. So there's the continuum here. Are you more fast-paced and outspoken, or cautious and reflective? That's body language stuff. And then this way, are you more questioning and skeptical, task-focused, or accepting and warm, people-focused? And what that does is it breaks people into 4 groups. Right. Okay. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to talk about the supermarket and how each of these 4 different styles might go shopping. Remember, we're all a mix of all of the styles, but we will show 1 or 2 of the styles more strongly. So if we go up into this quadrant here, we're talking about that D style, that dominant style. And if they're going to the supermarket, they just want to get the stuff done. No mucking around. They know what they're wanting to get. It's in and out. Heaven help you if you're in the way almost. Trolley rage is a thing. Don't worry about talking to people on the way because it's just a time waster. So you know what you're going to get. You just get in and you get out.
I'm laughing, Cathy, because last night my daughter said to me, Mum's one of those people, just go in the supermarket and out, just get what you need and move on.
Yeah. And it's when you have 2 people that are totally different styles and they go shopping together, it's just a nightmare. Anyway, so the next style, since we've only got 3 minutes, next style is the influence style. And when they go shopping, it's a heck of a lot more random. I mean, they can take a list, but the chances of the list making it to the supermarket checkout is pretty nil. It just it's like they've got these holes in their pockets, you know, and it just goes. And then there's the magnetic supermarket trolley that just what if these things just, you know, randomly jump into the thing because they look great? And you can go to the supermarket just for milk and bread and spend $80 and come home without the milk and bread. I mean, it's so frustrating. But you'll have a whole lot of food in your trolley. If we look at this style down here, which is the steadiness style, and it is, much calmer. So supermarket shopping is a calm experience. It's almost enjoyable. Many people will say it's enjoyable. Sometimes they'll have a list. Sometimes they won't, but you can tell from my body language and the way that I'm talking that I've calmed right down. It's definitely not rushed. You go and you'll get what you need. You might stop and talk to different people. You're just going to go and enjoy it. Okay, we've got one more style, and that's the C for conscientiousness style. And this style is very different again because supermarket shopping is a process. there's a list that needs to be made. It's probably made over several days. It's usually written out according to where things are in the supermarket so that you will not forget anything. You won't have to do any backtracking. Before you go to the supermarket, you'll check your cupboards and just make sure that you've got everything that you need. When you go into the supermarket, actually it's funny because often they don't want to make eye contact with other people because then you might have to stop and talk to them. But you would go through up and down every single aisle, again, no backtracking, making sure that you've got the right things that you are on the list, the right brands, the right sizes of them, check prices, check ingredients, all of those sorts of things. And then I've actually even heard about colour coordinated shopping bags for the different types of produce and things that you're buying, and then you would take it home and you would put it all away and be ready for the following week. So you can hear very, very different.
I'm just standing here laughing because that's my husband. I remember when we first got together and first went grocery shopping, he said there was a way to go around the supermarket. I went, what do you mean there's a way? I need something out of this aisle and this aisle, but no, he has to go down every single aisle. And yes, he puts the list in order of where we're going, where everything is. And it drives me crazy. I'm just like, I just want 3 things, here, here, and here. But
that's right.
And you can't go down the aisle the wrong way. I didn't even know there was a wrong
way. Yeah, no, there is. And that can be quite frustrating for these sorts of people as well, And
actually, frustrating for him.
Yeah, the other thing that I haven't mentioned is that in this C for conscientiousness style, the number of spreadsheets that I've heard about for shopping is just unbelievable. Colour coordinated spreadsheets that link with recipes, spreadsheets that are laid out in the order of the supermarket. Just a beautiful thing.
None of those. I can see all my family in some of those categories. So absolutely. So what about how do we understand these styles? So like we're going grocery shopping, but longer term, how do we use this information to understand and build better relationships?
Going back to that understanding, I think that the understanding that this is it's not deliberate. It's not being done to piss you off, it's not being done to annoy the heck out of other people. It's done because that is what works for them. And that's what I've found over the years is that understanding why somebody does something helps you to accept it and helps you to deal with it and find ways to work with it much better than just getting annoyed with them or expecting them to change. And so that's the first step is about that understanding, which calms the conflict down. And then the next thing is about actually looking at how we can change communication to be able to get those better results. Do we need to slow our communication right down, for example, if we are talking with somebody in that S or the C style, when we're going all like this, it's not going to work very well because they're just, whereas, and maybe give more detail. Or another thing can be to change our language because the people on that D and C style, they're wanting to know more about our thoughts rather than our feelings. And so being aware, are we wanting to know about thoughts or feelings? And so it helps people really understand and get better communication, and that builds better relationships. Yeah.
Yeah. What about in the classroom? Like how, and I'm throwing this question at you.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
And I'm just thinking when you've got 30 students in your classroom as a teacher and you've got all these different styles, is there any strategies that teachers can use to help?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it is. And I remember back to one of my children's parent-teacher interviews in high school, and 5 out of the 6 teachers of this child said to me, he really needs to talk more. He really needs to put his hand up. He really needs to ask questions. He really needs to. This guy will never, ever do that, right? He will never, ever talk in front of everybody. That understand, and 5 out of 6 of his teachers didn't know him, couldn't see him, coming back to that. If they had understood his communication style, they could have come alongside him and talked with him one-on-one. And that would have been a heck of a lot more useful for him as a student. But he would never be one.
And so for teachers, it's about understanding the communication style and the personality style of the children in the classroom.
Yes,
So,
and there are some children that need to be able to talk things out with others. And I can think of another son who had a teacher that made everybody separate their desks, and the only communication could go through the teacher. Well, that was never going to work for this particular person either. And I'm using examples from my sons in these two instances, but I've seen this in numerous situations with other students, both while I was teaching and not knowing this stuff, where you're expecting them to be able to respond in a particular way because that's what works. And so many teachers are visual communicators, and many, many, many of our students are not. And so helping them understand those different communication styles as well as their learning styles is another way of building that understanding and stronger relationships.
I think sometimes what we think is that everybody is like us.
Yes.
So yeah. I learn that way. I operate that way. So everybody else should.
Yes, that's that should, isn't it? That's that should. But 75% of the people in your classes won't be like you.
I mean, when you put it that way, that's a huge percentage, right?
That is a huge percentage.
Yeah.
Yep. And I remember another of my sons, 3 now, and the frustration that I've got 4. So the frustration that he felt one year now he is a C style and the teacher that year was an I style. And he was so frustrated because she would never give clear instructions. She would always change her mind halfway through, and then she'd be on to the next thing before she gave anybody the chance to be able to finish. Well, certainly not the C's, because they want to be able to finish their work properly. And so the stress that he was carrying because he couldn't finish his work, he didn't understand the instructions. I mean, it was a hugely stressful year for the first 6 months until we started actually talking about DISC. And he was starting to be able to understand why his teacher was doing that. And it helped him to be able to relax and know that it wasn't his problem. It wasn't his fault. Yeah, and that it was okay.
And there wasn't something wrong with him, because that's what
right.
the teenagers do, isn't it? Oh, there must be something wrong with me,
yeah.
because everybody else looks like they're learning. Everyone else looks like they're coping. It's just
that's right. And when he started asking questions, and saying things like, well, we haven't got enough time to do this, she didn't care because she was already on to the next thing, and the outcome wasn't important to her. Whatever you've done is fine. Well, no, it's not for a C.
They want to do it well, and they want to get it
a real fear of being wrong, a real fear of their work being incorrect. And that's another thing that comes through with DISC is the understanding of the emotions behind this. That the D style, for example, will show a real frustration, but the other 3 styles see that as being anger. Right? So that's another thing that you see.
Tell us about the other ones.
Okay, so with I, you'll see that enthusiasm, and it sort of looks chaotic, but you'll see that enthusiasm. But they have a fear of social rejection. So, being criticised in front of other people and things is quite hard. They want to be liked. And so if you've got them in your class, being able to reassure them that they've done good work in front of other people as well is a good thing, and being able to keep them on track. I think with the S style, you won't see any emotion because they'll sort of keep it to themselves, and they'll say yes, and you don't actually know whether they agree with you or not. Yes, I can do that. Yes, I can make that happen. Yes, I understand. Yes, I can do that. And the stress will build up, and then you'll see this big explosion that will come out of nowhere because of this tiny, tiny little thing. So if you've got kids in your class that, you've got nothing happening, and then all of a sudden they're in tears or they get really angry with you, then they're an S style probably. Yeah. So they just need that nurturing to look after them. Help them to stay calm.
It makes total sense that the way that they respond to that different emotion and how other people perceive it, that's really interesting.
Yes.
Well, what about conflict, Cathy? What happens when you're conflicted with someone else's style?
And that's the thing, is that in conflict, people tend to go more and more and more like their style. So that D style will go in more and more and more strong, and the I style will go, much more, trust me, it'll be okay, it'll be fine. Whereas the S style, you see them almost trying to get out of the room, getting away because they can't deal with the conflict. And the C will fight, but it's a very staunch, hard fight until they're not listened to. And then they'll go and do it their own way anyway, because they know that their way is right and you should have listened. So you can see even in my body language there, the different ways of responding. If you can see the styles and you know what's happening, then you can calm your style down. Because if you can go less and less, or calm your particular style down, then you're going to calm the other person down as well. And then you can work it out because you're much closer together. So keeping calm, being aware of the other person's style, and bringing our own emotion and so on down. Helping also trying to see it from the other point of view, what's going on from that other point of view. And you can't do that if you're not calm.
So that's interesting. So you're saying that when conflict happens, that we tend to go, for want of a better word, into our corners more.
Yes.
And amplify
yes.
that behaviour.
Yes, yes.
I could imagine if students aren't doing what a teacher's asked, a D teacher is going to come down hard and fast. And with punishment, perhaps.
Yes, absolutely.
Whereas an I will just be like, oh, we'll just go outside and have a game.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just something different, and maybe
we'll have some fun. A big road.
Whereas an S is probably going to take it really personally.
Yes.
And gosh, I'm not doing this right, and then maybe, as you said, it builds up into the boom for them. And then what is the C going to do? Be more precise? No, I don't.
They're not going to like that teacher. Because this is the way that it should be done, right?
And so what about
that dumb teacher hasn't given us the right instructions.
So what about a teacher who's in high C? They're going to want people to be more precise, aren't they?
Absolutely, and to give more information. And why is that student not able to do this right? Because this is the format that you need to follow. And you can even hear my voice is much stronger. Hear this like this, because everything needs to be precise. There's a single way of doing something, and it is my way, and this is the best way.
I can imagine students who are told they have to set their book out in a certain way every day, going why, and that precise teacher going, because it's the way we've always done it, or whatever, imagine that butting heads really strongly.
Yes, and the needing the detail, whereas your I's and your D's, that the big picture's fine. The detail doesn't matter.
Fascinating. What about different cultures? Is there some cultural differences here?
Yes, not within DISC, because those 4 styles are actually spread over there's an even spread over every culture, every language group, which is really interesting. But I go back to, why is understanding more about people so important? Different cultures has been a part of my life, and so much misunderstanding can also happen because of those cultural misunderstandings, and again that judging. And I was born in Japan, and one of the things that I've seen is that assumption that ways that different cultures do things is wrong. And one of the really easy examples is around the way that people eat, for example, and eating noodles. And in Japan, you want to make lots and lots of noise because it shows that you are appreciating the food, and it's really yummy. And it's also much easier to eat them because they're really hot, quicker and easier to eat them if you're slurping, because you get a bit, lots of air and all that sort of stuff, which helps to cool them down. But people here go, oh my goodness, that is so rude. And yet they don't talk about it, and they don't understand what's going on and why. There's another thing. I was working with an early childhood centre, and we were talking about what's the learning that you value. And I went around each of the different families in this centre, and there was a large group of Chinese families. The first lots of families that I was talking to, one of the things they really valued for their children was independence, for their early childhood children to be building their own independence. When I got to these Chinese families, they took one look at that word and they said, we don't want that. We don't want that. That's not what we want for our children at this age. And so, again, understanding what is important in those different cultures. So there's a whole lot of stuff here that we tend to judge. The body language, the cultural things, the values, the all of that sort of stuff, and it really affects the way that we build relationships. So I come back to the question I've asked all my life, which is why? Why do you do that? Because through those conversations, we uncover values, and with understanding of values, we can build relationships. So There we go. Go and learn stuff about different cultures. It's really fun. It's
That,
really,
I love
really
that.
fun.
Just ask, why do you do it that way? Instead of
Yeah.
judging and instead of just assuming they're wrong or even feeling uncomfortable. But
Mm, mm,
what a
mm,
simple little
mm,
thing to be able to do
mm, mm,
to,
mm.
to build that understanding and build those relationships a lot
Yeah,
faster.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you learn so much, and you learn stuff about other countries that you go, wow, I really like that. I've learned lots of stuff about Japan that has been really great. One of the things is around joining clubs, for example, and you can't give up. In New Zealand, we will try something and then we'll give up. Whereas over there, they have a thing about you join a club and you do it for 3 years. And so you get this whole idea around mastery and developing resilience, and that whole idea of if you work hard at something, you will be able to achieve. So that's really cool.
Wonderful. Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, Cathy. What an enlightening conversation to have this evening. And for those people who are watching, if you're live or if you're watching the recording, it would be great if you put your comments in the chat and let us know where did you think you fit on that quick grid there, and what's a question that you may be asked to try and understand people when you don't understand why they're doing something. So that would be great. So again, thank you so much, Cathy.
You're very welcome.
For the viewers, I want to let you know that in 3 weeks' time, just over 3 weeks' time, we're launching it starts our Parenting for Resilience, Confidence and Independence online summit. It's completely free for parents. So if you're a teacher, please let your parents know. You can find all the links and the information right here. Here's at the bottom here, spectrumeducation.com, Parenting Summit, or if you just go to the spectrumeducation.com site, you will find it there. You'll also find all the reruns of Spectrum TV. Tomorrow you'll find this interview as well if you want to share with others. And please let people know, because it's all about spreading the word. It's all about us being the best learners we can be so we can be the best people we can. And next week on Spectrum TV, I have the amazing Madeline Taylor. And Madeline has been writing for the Teachers Matter magazine, and she is going to be talking about parenting, the parenting journey. So she's really going to look at that journey of a parent and really help us to understand what that is and how we might be able to help. And so have a great evening, stay safe and keep learning. Thanks so much.